For weeks now, there's been a strange energy brewing out west, quiet at first, then suddenly impossible to ignore. People are whispering about it in cafes, MLAs are hinting at it in press scrums, and Ottawa? Well, Ottawa seems unusually silent. Something is shifting in Alberta. The kind of shift that doesn't make headlines right away, it ripples. It starts as a murmur, a subtle defiance, and then suddenly, it becomes something the whole country can feel. And right now, that ripple feels like the start of something much bigger. Because while Prime Minister Mark Carney is halfway across the world on his Asia trip, shaking hands, talking trade, and reassuring allies that Canada is, quote, stable and united back home, that unity is being tested in a way Ottawa hasn't seen in decades. In Edmonton, Premier Danielle Smith has been holding what some are calling closed-door strategy sessions. Her tone has changed. Her language has sharpened. And her latest statement, the one lighting up every political thread and Telegram group tonight, carries 5 words that are shaking up the country. We don't need permission. Now, she didn't shout it. She didn't even say it in front of reporters. But somehow, those words found their way out, and they've landed like a thunderclap. Because if you've been following the tension between Alberta and Ottawa, you already know this isn't coming out of nowhere. For months, the province's frustration with federal oversight over energy policy, pension control, and environmental regulation has been building like pressure under a steel lid. And tonight, it feels like that lid might finally be lifting. Let's take a step back. When Carney took office, his pitch to Canadians was all about economic balance and federal unity. He promised stability, sound governance, and an end to what he called the regional politics of resentment. But if you talk to people out west, that resentment never really disappeared. It just waited simmering for a moment like this. Ottawa's climate rules, the delays on pipelines, the constant talk about transitioning away from oil while Alberta's economy depends on it. Every new regulation, every federal appeal, every hint that Alberta's hands are being tied, it's all been adding up. And now, with Carney out of the country, Alberta seems to be testing just how far it can go without Ottawa's say-so. It started subtly. Small administrative moves, legal language shifts buried in provincial orders. Quiet directives to agencies. Talk of reasserting jurisdiction. And then, suddenly, the rhetoric got louder. Last week, a provincial official hinted that Alberta was reviewing federal agreements that no longer serve the province's interests. The statement barely made national news. But this week, when the Premier said, "We don't need permission," everything changed. Because that line, in context, sounds a lot less like a slogan and a lot more like a declaration. And whether that declaration is symbolic or strategic, it's being heard loud and clear in Ottawa. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister's team, scattered across time zones, seems caught off guard. Carney's focus overseas is on restoring Canada's trade credibility after months of uncertainty. But as he lands in Tokyo for another round of meetings, reporters back home are asking a different question entirely. Has Alberta just declared autonomy? No one's confirmed it, not the federal government, not the province, but the signals are hard to ignore. There are murmurs of a provincial autonomy framework, a draft policy circulating privately among senior Alberta staff. Some insiders suggest it lays out how Alberta could act independently in certain areas, taxation, pensions, even resource management, without federal interference. Now, again, nothing official. No document released. No law passed. But it's what's being implied that's causing the stir. And that's where this story turns from politics to something much deeper: identity. Because for many Albertans, this isn't just about laws or policy. It's about a feeling that the province is constantly playing by someone else's rules. They see Ottawa making decisions that affect Alberta's industries, Alberta's workers, and Alberta's money, with little to no input from Alberta itself. And when Danielle Smith says, "We don't need permission," it's not just aimed at Carney's government. It's aimed at decades of what Albertans see as federal overreach. Now, whether this becomes a full constitutional showdown or just another chapter in Canada's long story of federal-provincial tension remains to be seen. But one thing's clear: the tone has changed. There's a defiance in the air that wasn't there before. Political insiders in Ottawa are scrambling to understand the timing. Why now? Why say it while the Prime Minister's out of the country? Some think it's strategic, a way to test the waters while the spotlight's elsewhere. Others believe it's a message to the people of Alberta, not to Ottawa at all, that their government is done waiting for approval. Meanwhile, in Calgary, local radio is buzzing. Talk show hosts are dissecting every phrase. Analysts are wondering whether this signals a legal move or something more symbolic. And in the oil patch, workers are saying what many in the province quietly feel, finally. Here's where it gets even more interesting. Sources close to the Premier's circle suggest that several provincial ministries have already been instructed to review federal influence in their operations. That could mean funding agreements, data-sharing programs, regulatory frameworks, anything that ties Alberta's hands to Ottawa. Again, not confirmed. But if true, it paints a picture of a province quietly and methodically drawing lines in the sand. And while Ottawa hasn't commented directly, insiders say there's growing concern that Alberta might be laying the groundwork for something much larger, possibly even a legislative package asserting exclusive provincial jurisdiction. That kind of move would push the boundaries of the Constitution itself. Here's the part that's unsettling people in power. The Premier hasn't denied any of it. Every time a reporter asks, Smith smiles slightly and says something like, "Alberta will always do what's best for Albertans." That's not a denial. That's a warning. And it's working because the conversation in Ottawa has shifted from if Alberta's serious to how far Alberta might go. So where does this go next? If history is any guide, this could spiral fast or it could fade as quietly as it began. But there's something about the timing that makes it hard to believe this is just political theater. The words, "we don't need permission," don't sound like a negotiating tactic. They sound like the start of a new phase, one where Alberta isn't asking, but acting. And as the Prime Minister's plane crosses the Pacific, somewhere between Tokyo and Seoul, one can only imagine the conversations waiting for him when he lands. Because when he does, he won't be walking into a calm, united Canada. He'll be walking into a storm that started with 5 simple words and a province that seems ready to prove them true. Whether it's bold strategy or quiet rebellion, no one knows where this ends. But one thing's certain, something fundamental has shifted in the relationship between Alberta and Ottawa. And for the first time in a long time, Alberta isn't just pushing back. It's standing up and saying, loud enough for the whole country to hear, "We don't need permission."